That might be the new intro.
Welcome to Women's History Month. This is a special episode, very special day on InfoDump, for a few reasons. It's March, of course, Women's History Month, International Women's Day. Get ready for it. We're respecting women. And we're also doing our first trio episode.
Yay!
So let me introduce a fellow boss bitch who emanates grace but will punch you in the face. My sister and our first guest ever, air horns. Michelle!
Welcome! Yay!
Hello.
Welcome to the show, Shelly. It's great to have you on. This person right here taught me the art of infodump. So yeah,
And by association, me as well.
I remember you telling me something about clouds over dinner when we were very small, and I was just like, oh, okay, now I know about clouds. That was my infodumping introduction, and I remember. Yeah, so today we have a very intense episode for everyone out there. We've picked 3 different women. Each one of us have picked a woman from history.
Name 3 women. Go.
So each one of us has picked a different woman to highlight for this Women's History Month, and I'll be starting us off today, and we have to go back to the 1880s to paint this picture. So I'm starting off with a question, like I so often do. When do you think the Industrial Revolution was? If you think Industrial Revolution, what year comes to mind?
1800s?
1805.
Like, yeah, 18...
Really?
Like, yeah.
I always...
1800s?
I thought it was like 1900s.
No.
Like, I thought it was like, Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire time.
Pretty sure that fire happened late in the revolution because people were extra stupid by that point
Yeah.
and extra capitalist.
They want you to think history is a lot further behind than it actually is. So...
You're not wrong.
yeah.
So yeah, I would have guessed 1910s, but apparently I'm dumber than 1 out of 3 people. So it was actually the 1880s.
Okay. So we both were kind of
Right, you were a little early.
I said early 1800s. You said 1900s. So
Yeah.
in the
So
middle.
it actually began as early as the 1870s, but that was around the start. And so at that point, women made up 15 to 20% of the workforce, and mostly being nurses, teachers, and seamstresses. But as the 20th century began and factories began to thrive, women took jobs in textile factories, and the wealthier, educated women could have the job of a human computer.
Computer, I hardly know her.
Ooh.
So
This is a comedy podcast sometimes. I'm sorry.
we got to keep it light.
Yeah.
So I thought like a human computer would have been like a modern concept, like AI or whatever, but or at least Hidden Figures.
Right, that's
like
what I
at
was
least like
thinking.
70s, like a little later than the early 1900s,
Making typewriters.
right? But yeah, so women had been on the ground floor of innovation for much longer than we thought. And Ada Lovelace is actually considered the first computer programmer, as she wrote down a detailed method of calculating Bernoulli numbers. And trust me, I looked into them and they don't make sense. So she was smart. So yeah, so as a result of Ada Lovelace's abilities specifically, women were looked at to be natural programmers. Unfortunately, they were also able to be paid less than men, so they were natural programmers. So through the 20th century, you'll see women behind most difficult computations. Even the term kilogirl hour became a thing, meaning 1,000 hours of computing labor from a woman. And it's now outdated and a little derogatory. People get a little pissed when you say it. Because women were behind major computations that affected the rise of the industry, and we hardly even know about it. And you're just referring to women as machines at this point. However, things in this time period were largely based upon class, so the only women who could be computers were those who could afford the schooling. There's no particular record on how Alice Mabel Gray paid for her higher education, But contrary to common myths about her, she did not come from a family of physicians. She had to put herself through school, but that's not the reason we're talking about her. Alice Mabel Gray was born on March 25th, 1881. The fifth out of 6 children. Her mother stayed at home, and her father was a lamplighter. He literally lit the gas lamps on the street, like climbed a ladder, lit the little match, got him going.
Honestly, sounds fun.
Well, when Alice was 14, he suffered severe burns from an accident.
Oops, spoke too soon.
Yeah, and he became bedridden and lost his job. And her mother somehow pulled the finances out by doing like menial farm work in their backyard and stuff and selling like just the basic crops that they were growing for themselves. But because she was working on keeping the family afloat, the care of the youngest child, Chester, fell onto Alice when she was just 14. So as it does so often to young women. And despite her being needed at home, Alice made it through high school with high honors. She put herself through college, focusing on mathematics. And by her 3rd year in college, both of her parents had passed. And with all the children being adults, she was officially on her own. Her 3rd year of college was difficult from the stress of losing her mother. It affected her studies, but she regained her good standing by her 4th year and, again, graduated with high honors in 1903. At 22, Alice worked as a computer for the U.S. Naval Observatory. And although she definitely worked there, Alice was uninvolved with the social life of the job, abstaining from get-togethers, never appearing in photos. And her employee file actually reads, Miss Gray had cut her hair short. She also worked in pants. That was it. That's all they cared about her.
Because she wasn't, quote-unquote, normal?
Literally, she was a little odd. She didn't want to wear a skirt. She liked pants.
Okay.
And that was a problem. But she was also just not very social, which I can't blame her. But everyone viewed her as an outcast because she was just a little strange. And after working there for 3 years, she moved to Germany to study higher mathematics and being admitted to a college as a guest listener, so she didn't receive any collegiate recognition. But she went to the classes.
Okay.
She left Europe, enrolled in graduate studies at the University of Chicago. She studied theoretical mathematics for a year before changing course, going to philosophy for 3 years before leaving college altogether. At this point, she was drawn to leave the city yet again. She wrote, I wanted to live my own life, a free life. The life of a salary earner in the cities is slavery, a constant fight for the means of living. Here, it is so different. When she was out of the city. She was inspired by a poem by someone I think I'm introducing to pod lore for the first time. Lord Byron.
Lord Byron.
I was originally going to do Mary Shelley for this segment, but I thought it was really funny that Lord Byron came up in this, so because they were buddies. So a poet in the early 1800s, an acquaintance of Mary Shelley, and just an over-the-top fellow. Alice read his work in high school and was inspired by his poem Solitude, which was an excerpt from a larger epic that he wrote. It emphasizes the peacefulness of nature and being alone, where men have barely roamed and enjoying the calmness of solitude over the bustling city life. On October 31st, 1915, Alice boarded the South Shore train with a blanket and 2 pistols. Life before 9/11, am I right? And headed for the Indiana...
Yeah.
And she headed for the Indiana Dunes. This area became a national park in 2019. It took that over 100 years later until it was an official national park. It was a state park from, I believe, the 60s. But when Alice was headed there, it was just beginning to get its recognition. With little foot traffic other than the occasional fisherman, it was a beautiful spot to relish in Lord Byron's so-called solitude. In the midst of fall, she slept under the stars, but quickly realized she would need more than a blanket to survive the winter. Nearby, there was a small teepee owned by a fellow nature lover, Flora Richardson. Flora was a conservationist who loved the dunes and made strides for their protection. And Flora agreed to let Alice live at the teepee, the Sassafras Lodge, which kept Alice safe from the harsh winds and storms of the winter. Alice spent months writing in her diary, enjoying her time on the dunes, and questioning if she made the right choices. Although she wavered for her first few months, she trusted in her decision to experience solitude. Alice lived in the Sassafras Lodge year-round. She received no regular visitors and had no neighbors, but she would venture across miles of sand for supplies from local communities. She would have visits with townspeople who thought of her odd but would welcome her to share her stories. Her positive repertoire from the townspeople wasn't shared by all, and by the spring, Alice was in the process of being evicted from the Sassafras Lodge. Flora and her husband claimed Alice was unclean and unkempt, which Alice could not deny when looking in a mirror at a house she was visiting and seeing her reflection for the first time in a long time. She described herself as wild, noting how it seems like the lifestyle is wearing on her. However, she was at peace at the dunes, and after leaving the Sassafras Lodge, she pressed on to find an abandoned fisherman's shack. She furnished her new home with driftwood furniture and settled in, writing in her diary, "Everything I have here, this chair, this cap I wear, these tins, are driftwood, drifting in from the lake. I, too, am driftwood." She named her new home Driftwood, and as the weather warmed for the summer, she started bathing in Lake Michigan. She drew the attention of local fishermen, which subsequently proved how people can see driftwood in the water and claim Loch Ness Monster, because fishermen would see Alice in the water, pale and naked, because that was her thing. And they'd return to town to tell stories of a ghost, a mermaid, a nymph. You guys fucking kidding me? It's a person. Like,
Y'all never seen a person before?
literally. So Alice's story gained attention from numerous people, including a writer from the Fort Wayne News and Sentinel, Honor Fanning, which I wrote all this before I went into the newspaper articles. I looked at the official ones. And Honor Fanning told every single newspaper that this was a private story. At the top of every single one, it was like, exclusive to the Star, exclusive to the Tribune, exclusive. And it was in every fucking newspaper across the country.
Of course.
Are you kidding me?
Marketing genius.
Literally. Just lie. That's the best way to market.
Yeah.
So Honor Fanning wrote an article titled "Nymph of the Sand Dunes" in August of 1916. Alice was highlighted in this article as a woman who lived on the dunes and wrote off society. It had a surprising amount of quotes from Alice, but it also starts off the epithet Diana of the Dunes, because she was a hunter, she lived on her own, she was a chaste goddess, if you will. She was, Diana, the Roman goddess of the hunt, did not concern herself with the piddly quandaries of men.
Italy quandaries.
I
love that.
That was right off the dome.
All right.
So yeah, according to the article, they literally said Diana, the goddess, hated men and went into the wilderness to live in virgin purity. That's how they were highlighting her in this newspaper article.
Sexist?
Was this the beginning of incels?
That's exactly.
Like,
So this reporter pulled up to Alice's hut, saw a ragged bed and 2 revolvers, and was like, "Yep, this is where she lives." And Alice came out of the bushes and just said, "Who are you, please?
this is my private domicile.
And I will not be harassed. I must not see strangers. I had hoped nobody would find me here." And I could just imagine her thinking, "What the hell? How did you get here? I gotta go further? I gotta go further."
I'm in the woods, guys.
Literally.
Leave me alone.
And of course, these are the Indiana sand dunes, so it's on Lake Michigan.
Yeah.
And it's just all sand. And
I've seen it before.
Yeah, it's fucking gorgeous. I want to go so bad. But yeah, to just live
Isn't
out
that
on
the
the
place
sand.
that if you get all the way down there and you can't get back up, it's costs $3,000 for them to get you back up?
Mm-mm. Maybe that has something to do with it.
I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of something different, but it's
I was looking
one of the Great
into
Lakes.
Diana's Dare, which I will talk about later. So let me just real quick go off my script. The reason I wanted to highlight Alice, or Diana of the Dunes, was because there's not a lot of information on her. There is one episode of National Parks After Dark that they highlight her. And they did that episode off of the book that was written fairly recently, I want to say early 2000s, that actually looked at all her diary excerpts and put together pieces of her life that other people hadn't yet. So she was just a hot newspaper title for almost 100 years. And then people were like, she's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah. So after learning she's becoming folklore in the fisherman community, she gave some insight as to why she was out there. I couldn't decide on a snippet from the quote, so you're getting the whole thing. Diana, or Alice, said, "I'm sorry they call me a hermit and the mystery woman," she said. "We are all mysteries to somebody or other. I must remain a mystery to the public for a time. I came here to the wilderness to seek myself. I was working in Chicago, making little in the way of money, doing little importance to the world, it seemed. I had measured myself with the world, and the results were not encouraging. I came here to measure myself with nature. I found a cave here in the hills, spread my blanket, slept under the stars, and communed with myself. I began to live. I have had 10 glorious months. I have no worries about work, about the daily grind of living and doing. I am free."
Damn.
I want to be here when I'm older.
Literally, like
what do you mean?
an icon. So I felt like all of this was important. How the public views women that favor a basic life and how they feel entitled to know her story, referring to Alice as the mystery woman or emphasizing that she's the chaste goddess. Chaste. The need to understand people is inherent. Everyone's curious. We're all curious people. But also let people fucking live, you know? Like, Alice is one of many hermits over time, and yet her story has become a folktale for the Indiana Dunes. Alice describes how typical life wasn't fulfilling, which I think is extremely relatable now, as the 9-to-5 workday still commands us, and most of us are living to work, not working to live. By moving out to the dunes, Alice let go of society's need to keep producing and advancing, and she was able to spend time with herself to enjoy literature, dance among the dunes, and bathe in Lake Michigan nude.
Heck yeah.
She also boasted that she reduced her cost of living to almost nothing, 10 cents a day, which today in exchange, inflation, it would be like $3.50. Based on my rent, my daily cost starts at $28.
I was just gonna say you can't breathe without spending $3.50.
Literally. Yeah, so she figured something out.
I mean, hey.
She was thriving among the dunes, but when asked if she would ever go back to the city, she considered, "Someday I suppose I'll want to go back, but the city can never give me what the wilderness has given me. Peace of mind and the strength of mind to live alone. I suppose that's what we all might need. A break from society to learn about ourselves." Alice continued to live among the dunes for quite some time, and articles continued to come out talking about Diana of the Dunes. When she was 35, one article referred to her as in her early 20s, beginning to romanticize Alice as this beautiful nymph of the dunes, even as she was aging. And opinions were split. Many would describe Alice as young and beautiful, but there were also a fair share of reporters who would describe her as literally an old crone, making it pretty clear there's no way to appease the masses, and the double standard has been around for a long time. A major shift in Alice's news coverage came about in 1918. It became more difficult to paint her as this gorgeous little virgin nymph among the dunes once she found a partner to share it with. Paul Eisenblatter Wilson moved out to the dunes to be with Alice, which I really wish I read the book, because the woman who wrote the book went into all of her diary excerpts.
Mm-hmm.
And long story short, before she moved out to the dunes, there was a man that she referred to in her diary as L. Just L.
Okay. The letter L or EL?
The letter L.
Okay.
So no one could figure out who this was, and she moved out to the dunes when that had apparently fallen apart. Like, they were sending love letters back and forth or whatever, and then it fell apart, and she said, It's my time to go to the dunes. I've got no ties. So, Paul came into her life as Luther McCarthy, I believe.
Okay.
That was a name he told everyone when he first went out there. You will find that he is not a stand-up guy, but I have to wonder if he was either pretending to be L and his name was Luther, like L's the actual person, his name was Luther, and he was like, oh, I know this girl really liked this guy. I'll pretend not to be him. Or maybe he was actually that person, got into some trouble, which would make sense in a little bit, and then had to change his name to Paul.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I'm very curious about that, because that almost changes a significant amount of her story. Because, okay, so the shift in her news coverage started with when Paul Eisenblatter Wilson, and he dropped his middle name, or the second Eisenblatter. So he was just Paul Wilson. No one knew why he dropped that. No valid. But he was apparently estranged from the Eisenblatter family for some unknown reason.
Suspicious.
And when he moved out there with Alice, suddenly butter, eggs, guns, and blankets started disappearing from cottages, and tracks in the sand led back to Alice's shelter. Paul was caught by a marshal, and Alice visited him in jail. She said, "The man asked for shelter, and I had no idea he was paying for it by robbing my neighbors. I took him in because he was cold, wet, and hungry." Which, let me pull up a quick headline. So when she met Wilson, her titles, her headlines changed from "Flees from World of Mystery," "Girl Hates Men, Lives in Jungle,"
Girl hates men.
"Mermaid in Revolt Against Man Rule." And when she started seeing Paul, it changed to "Girl Hermit Bride to Marry a Caveman. Caveman trapped near Diana's dunes. Diana of Dunes acts as Samaritan and is taken in. Befriends giant who repays by robbing neighbors. Caveman? ? Hist, Alice. Wake up. Giant trapped in Diana's dunes. Claims to be Luther McCarthy, but it can't be. This one's great. Romance is seen, for pistol expert admits he got food from girl hermit. Miss Gray writes of sex in sensational diary.
Sensational.
Which, the other thing I found in these newspaper articles was the full page, or I think it was a half-page ad. The half-page ad that was selling her diary as a published book while she was fucking alive.
I was just gonna say.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So there's okay, I'll get into that in a second. That's actually further, but I'll come back to that. So Paul spent 6 months working on a penal farm when Alice went back to her home in the dunes, and that winter was especially harsh. So she spent 6 weeks living with Swedish immigrants in a distant neighboring town. Paul sent letters to this residents from the farm, and excuse me. Paul claimed that when he was released, they quickly wed, although there were no such records. They moved westward among the dunes and built a shelter that Alice named Wren's Nest. And Paul would perform the manly duties, which Alice was doing just fine before. And sometimes Paul would allegedly fly into fits of rage, but Alice's presence calmed him. Once they moved, Paul's criminal history led to speculation about his honest living with Alice, and the local deputy sheriff hired watchmen to keep eyes on the couple. They lived in Wren's Nest for 3 years until a local murder raised suspicions of the townspeople. So this murder was particularly gruesome, and I'll read you some of these headlines. Find man dead in sand dunes of Indiana. Link Diana of the Dunes finding of man's body. Semi-barbaric woman known as Diana of the Dunes and her companion being stalked. Wealthy camper victim. Diana, this is a little snippet of an article. Diana of the Dunes dressed herself in the garments she made from the wreckage of sails found on the boats sent up by the tide. The furnishings of her cave came from the same source. Her pale beauty turned to sun-kissed brown. Then Wilson came into the life of modern Diana. He took up his abode in Diana's cave. He and Diana became known as the mad pair of the wilderness.
Here. Okay.
So they were like, this guy's an ex-convict. I'm pretty sure they killed this guy. But Alice's diary that she kept so intensely, like, she was constantly writing in it, she had rock-solid alibis.
Yeah, the records were there. She had receipts.
I'm pretty sure the deal was they had left town for, like, the 3 days that guy showed up dead. And then they never figured out who did it. And it was really weird because he was burned, but he had a rifle in his hands, but they also just said it was near him, so people were thinking he died from a rifle wound, like a gunshot wound. But then they were saying that there was just a girl, that taxi driver was like, oh, there was just this girl that, like, she was really uncomfortable, and I drove her to the dunes, and she asked me to wait for her, and then she came back and was, like, really nervous, so distraught that I asked her if I could take her to the hospital. And that was the same day that this guy was found dead. So not only did they have Diana or Alice and Paul have rock solid alibis, but there was also other avenues for them to look into.
Yeah.
But they got so obsessed with proving that Paul did this. And it was kind of ridiculous. Like,
because they're really trying to paint Diana / Alice as, like, she hangs out with bad people. Like,
yep.
She's just off.
Because she
so
wasn't
far from society. Like,
because she was weird and she wasn't able to be sold as a beautiful nymph anymore. Yeah. So they just needed their next headline.
Right.
So yeah, so it was crazy because the body literally washed up on shore right next to their hut.
Mm.
But they were completely absolved. Is that the word? Foolproof alibi. So, although they could go back to a normal life, Alice and Paul were still a concern for the locals because they didn't trust them. So, they were approached at their home by 2 fishermen, claiming the deputy sheriff, who I recently found out he was just a boatman when I was reading the thing. Like, all of these sources say different stuff. That the newspaper articles call him a boatman, but all the sources that, like, have put together stuff on Diana call him the deputy sheriff.
Interesting.
So the deputy sheriff said Alice and Paul had been seen stealing fishing nets. And Alice and Paul decided to confront the sheriff, Eugene Frank. They show up to his house, and Eugene is visibly drunk. And in a self-defense maneuver, which was later thrown out as a case, the sheriff shot Paul in the foot and took his pistol and rammed it into the back of Alice's head. She had a dent in her skull the size of Paul's hand, and he was referred to in the papers as a giant. I think he was 6'4". So she was, long story short, she was permanently injured from that. So for some reason, Paul remained in custody because it was like a battle between Paul and the sheriff guy. So he was in custody and Diana was in the hospital. All these headlines are like, Diana of the Dunes dying. And she was in serious condition, but she wasn't dying. There's actually one that said Paul and Diana murdered by boatmen. And it's like, they never died from that, guys. Slow down. So Paul remained in custody, and with the wren's nest unattended, it was ransacked. Everything Diana had written, every piece of literature she was involved in for the past 10 years that she was on this beach, was stolen. And this is where I think they got the diary manuscripts. I think her diary was stolen and they decided to sell it. because it was probably about 1922 that I found those newspaper clippings, and this would have been right around 22, 23. To top off the summer, it wasn't all bad, because Eugene Frank got drunk again after he was absolved from all that shit, because he was like, it's self-defense. And they're like, we don't think that, we're not going to pay attention to it because we don't care about these people. So he got drunk again and decided to ride a violent horse, fell off, then the horse fell over and crushed him to death.
What a way to go.
And it's literally one of the headlines is attacker of Diana of the Dunes slain by giant colt. Like,
Yeah.
Okay. They're wilding on these newspaper articles.
Hey.
So after all this chaos, all the locals hated him, and construction was beginning on the Dunes Highway. Alice and Paul decided to move in November of 1923. They returned to the dunes the following spring, and much to the dismay of the other new inhabitants, and in the next 2 years, Alice would remain at the shack working on a libel suit against newspapers for the defamation of their characters. However, on Sunday, February 8th, Alice had grown extremely sick from what doctors previously diagnosed as kidney disease. Alice refused medical treatment upon the diagnosis and returned to the dunes. Paul tried to get help for Alice around February, when she was getting really sick. And he said to a neighbor, quote, Diana is awful sick. Which I found odd because Diana was the moniker given to her by news outlets. And I was under the impression she didn't like that.
Mm.
And so for him to call her Diana is really weird to me. So it seems like Paul could have likely used Diana to refer to her because she was like, well, I'm the goddess of the hunt. You know, like she kind of took it in a good way.
I mean,
but even at that, it just seems off.
so he said that to the newspaper people? Like
He said that
to
to-
a news reporter?
Yes, yeah.
So maybe just because they were using that as her name in the newspapers? Like,
this is, well, because he said Diana is awful sick to the doctor. And then the doctor reported it to the newspaper.
So, no, I don't like that.
Right?
That's fishy.
So Paul asked his neighbor to get a doctor, and Alice was diagnosed with uremic poisoning. Don't look up uremic poisoning because you will get flagged because they think you're dying.
No,
I just wanted to know what it was, guys.
No, because when we're both logged into the InfoDump email, Google account, and we can see each other's search history. I was very concerned.
Yeah.
What, are you dying? I was like, are you
Well,
okay?
you search uremic poisoning, and it goes, poison helpline.
Yeah.
Like, the first thing that comes
Yeah.
up, and I'm like, I don't have it. I want to know what it is.
Yeah.
Like, calm down, guys. I think if I had uremic poisoning, I wouldn't be at the computer right now.
You wouldn't have enough time.
Literally.
So what is it?
So it's basically, like, your kidneys, like, they obviously filter stuff, and, like...
So is uremic urine?
I think it's closer to urea, which is, like, urine that comes out is made of urea that is the output from the kidneys.
So it's just like circling back through itself. Like it's just
Yeah, pretty much.
cycling.
That it's like, yeah, you're not processing. Like, I think that would be something like dialysis would help, maybe. Because I think that's a thing.
Right. I don't know.
But, yeah, so allegedly Alice, when she got this kidney disease diagnosis, she was like, I would rather live out on the dunes and not deal with society
Totally
because
valid.
y'all suck.
Totally valid.
And so she just said, you know what, I'd rather die on my own terms. And yeah. So on February 9th, 2025.
Holy crap.
She lived 100 years, guys.
Guys, she died only a year ago?
Yeah.
God.
On February 9th, 1925, Alice Mabel Gray passed away at 5 a.m. Paul was inconsolable. Alice wanted to be cremated and thrown into the winds of the dunes, but her family, who hadn't talked to her for years, was set on burial.
Please tell me they didn't.
Paul could not afford cremation, so her body, unfortunately, did get buried. And upon seeing her casket, Paul waved his gun in the air, saying whoever takes her body will be sorry. So he was detained until after she was buried. So after Paul was released, he moved to California to actually spend 10 years there, and he passed away in a different national park, living out there. He passed away as an unidentified man, but then he eventually identified.
Is she buried, like, near the park?
She's buried in Gray, Indiana.
Okay.
Yeah, so she's very, very close to the park.
Okay. I was hoping at least that.
So that's Alice's story, but I have to make a few statements about how she was viewed in the public eye. She was a concept, and not her own person. And she unfortunately remains a concept. As a child or a teen, she was a concept of a future housewife. She was put in charge of her younger sibling, and she still managed to become her own person and put herself through school. Then she became the concept of a worker bee, someone feeding into the capitalist structure because they have no other option. She broke out of that role, escaping to the dunes and enjoying life for what it has to offer. Once everyone heard the news that a woman isn't following the status quo, she became a nymph, beautiful and sexy. This new persona that the public put on her was destroyed once she grew older and gained a partner. Once they could no longer spin her virtue, the public turned on her. Skeptical of her actions at any moment, concerned she could commit murder, while she never displayed any signs of aggression. It was a reputation of Paul that led to her social outcasting. Even after her death, she still remains a concept. Her story is told often and incorrectly. Finding accurate sources for this was extremely difficult because everything written about her has some sort of extreme bias. Mostly, her story is actually told as a ghost story, a terrifying tale of living out in the dunes, being beaten by her volatile husband, and dying by a stomach punch from him that caused uremia. That's the folklore that they tell in Indiana. She is the Bloody Mary of Indiana.
That's crazy.
Wild. And some versions even include her having 2 kids with Paul that lived on the dunes with them. And yeah, so I'll include her dying from this gruesome death, and now she roams the dunes as a ghost, swimming in the water, etc., etc. And people will go out there and ghost hunt for her. And it's kind of like, all right, guys, what are we doing? But through the years, people have noticed that Alice's story is being lost, and there have been many retellings. I even found one from 1997 that really spoke to me in a bad way. This guy named David Hop. David!
Hop from Stranger Things?
He wrote about Alice in a way that made me want to include it as a highlight specifically for Women's History Month. This was in 97, by the way. Okay. He said that she was considered young by her friends as well as her detractors is worth noting. It's hard to imagine a 34-year-old woman passing as a young girl, as the Prairie Club's Marjorie Curry described her in 1915, when life expectancies were considerably less than they are today. And few photographs that purport to show Alice Gray hardly reveal the nymph the press was so anxious to exploit. Could you imagine being like, yeah, I want to have an accurate retelling of a story. Like, that was his first paragraph. He's like, I'm going to the dunes to investigate. And then he writes that. And then he continues with, what seems more likely is that there is something in her character, in her attitude, and finally in her behavior that, while it set her apart, also made her compelling, even attractive. She was not an articulate waif, but a woman who, whatever insecurities may dogged her, presented a confident front. Same guy, same paper. He says, but she was so weird that she was hot. Like, I don't think she was trying to be attractive out there, guys. Like, that was not the point.
And we still let men write things to this day? Like,
Is this also the male gaze?
I guys, I fucking can't.
just admit you hate women. It's okay.
Right? Like, even
That's crazy.
attractive. What?
Absurd.
So yeah, so she was just literally trying to live, and jerks like this soil her story one dumb assumption at a time. Her true story stays alive in the dunes, and I don't mean that metaphorically. Alice has a trail dedicated to her, Diana's Dare. This trail includes her history and life put up on signs around where she lived. The trail is around 1.5 miles long and includes over 250 stairs. They traverse the dunes where Alice likely meandered to go get her supply runs and to meet the locals. And if you complete the trail and take a selfie, the National Park Service will give you a sticker!
We should go.
National Park Service is out here doing the Lord's work.
Oh, yeah.
My last note is that I hope I did Alice justice. I don't want to be another person adding nonsense to her story. Her story is extremely relatable, especially with lately the feeling of late-stage capitalism crushing our spirits. And she was not just an image or concept for people to ogle. She was a real person with real feelings. And I hope I highlighted that today. If I ever seek solitude, I hope I'm given more grace and respect than Alice was given.
Valid.
Damn.
So that's my piece on Alice Mabel Gray. So that is how society has affected women. Now we're going to take a look at Michelle's piece. That is how women affected society like the badass bitches they are. And I'm so excited for this. So take it away, Shelley.
All right, I'm excited too.
All right. So first, hi. Like they said, I'm Michelle, and I wrote this piece on Juliette Gordon Low, who is the founder of Girl Scouts. And I will admit that right now, from about December to March, actually, everybody associates Girl Scouts because it's cookie season. And if it's not about the cookies, then it's some woman or other complaining about, oh, I was a Girl Scout as a kid, but all we did was crafts. This is patently false as to what Girl Scouts is for. And honestly, it's just like, it's totally fucking wrong. Because the roots of the program go back to our founder, Juliette Gordon Low, who was absolutely wild and does tend to get mythologized a lot, but she was so strong. And so Juliette Low, Juliette Daisy Gordon, when she was young, was born on Halloween in Savannah.
Okay.
Another Halloween day. Okay, so bad bitches love Halloween. That's first things first.
True.
Yep. So she was born in Savannah, Georgia, in 1860. So shortly before the Civil War. Unfortunately, that does mean that her family did own people because they lived on a plantation and they were people of means. But, you know, that's just a context of history. And she was the second of 6 children, mostly brothers, but she did have a sister that she was, 2 sisters that she was close to, as well as multiple cousins she spent summers with. And she was also intensely creative, getting involved in poetry as well as theater, in both being an actress as well as writing plays and sketching. And like most girls of means at the time, she did attend boarding school for her teenagehood. She also happened to be really accident prone and really boisterous. In 1866, when she was 6 years old, her mother mentioned in a letter that Daisy fell out of bed on her head as usual. And she also happened to suffer from frequent infections as a child and a young woman, including multiple bouts of malaria, which, just to contextualize, people die of malaria nowadays with all the medical stuff that we have available. And she survived multiple infections. And she also had frequent ear infections. So she was just built different to be able to survive all this.
Yeah, true.
Unfortunately, due to the medicine at the time, and due to her insistence that she wanted the latest infection cures, she ended up getting her ear swabbed with silver nitrate, which silver nitrate, just context, is used in modern medicine, but it's a harsh chemical. And modern medicine uses like a 1% dilution. This was much stronger, and it damaged her eardrums so much that she was nearly deaf in the right ear. Not entirely, but nearly.
Wow.
This did not stop her. As she grew up, she was very social and she wanted to help people. So at 16, she inspired her cousins and her friends to form a club, later known as the Helping Hands Club. And so they thought, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to help people? And their first project was to create garments for a recently immigrated family to wear. The children of the immigrant family unfortunately found the clothes ill-fitting and itchy, but, her heart was in the right place. The club dissolved soon after, but man, did they make the attempt. And it was one of the stepping stones that, like, looking back, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. That definitely tracks. And so a couple of years later, she made her social debut at the age of 18 in 1878. More context, a debut is an event primarily in the southern United States, or generally wherever high society and gentility cluster. And it basically means you are old enough to be looked at by men as marriage material. And it sucks. But the other part of that is you are now free to travel to meet men and to meet other people. Okay. Daisy, Juliette, she took this and went, all right, bet, I'm going to go travel. And she ended up frequenting England. Now, England is going to be a pattern in her life. So she travels, she does her thing, and then unfortunately in 1880, her sister Alice passes away. And she relocates back to Savannah to take care of the household while her mother grieves. During this period, she met William Mackay Low, the son of a family friend, and they began courting in secret. Remember him, because, oh boy. And basically, William's whole thing is that he is the son of a wealthy landowner over in England. And, rich boy, everything's great. And Juliette had this kind of romanticism about it of like, oh, he's fun, he's exciting, and he's exotic. And they were in love at first. So William was the son of a wealthy landowner over in England, and he came over to Savannah to, essentially be social and, make connections, because business people do as they do. And so he met Juliette, and they were in love. And Juliette's parents, however, had this feeling that, he was going to be trouble, and they wished that she would find someone as hardworking as her father, which, irony, was not exactly the strong suit of the people of the past, because someone as hardworking as her father, once again, slave plantation during the Civil War, they were fully in the Confederacy at this point. Yeah. I just find that hilarious. But eventually, William left Georgia to study at the University of Oxford, over in Oxford, England. And they did not meet again until almost 3 years later. Because in 1884, Juliette took a trip back over to England, where she not only met William and started courting him again, She also learned shorthand writing, bareback horseback riding, and partridge hunting. And so eventually, in a simpler, cleaner world, this would be the happily ever after portion. Because they were like, okay, we'll get married, everything's going to be great. And they did. In the perfect world, they would have been a very adventurous little couple and everything would have been fine. Unfortunately, the wedding was a sign of turbulence yet to come. Because on her wedding day, Juliette Gordon Low got a grain of rice stuck in her left ear. And yeah, you know how they throw rice at weddings for good luck. Well, this was apparently some sort of omen of bad luck because she got the grain of rice stuck in her left ear, and due to an incompetent removal by a doctor, the doctor ruptured her left eardrum, leaving her entirely deaf in that ear. So she's almost deaf in the right, all the way deaf in the left.
Oh my gosh.
We stan a disabled queen, but good lord.
That's rough, dude.
Oh my god, this poor girl.
Because of basically medical malpractice.
Yeah. Yeah, both times.
Yeah. She
Wild.
not really a fan of doctors, her, after this.
Makes sense. That's trauma.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So this omen was a sign of things to come, because things continued to get worse as William turned out to be a philandering piece of work with a heavy drinking problem and a desire to separate from Juliette because he was preferring his mistresses.
As they often do.
Yep. And so they began living apart permanently, with him sending an allowance of money periodically. However, he soon began to withhold the money from her because that's what abusive men do. And for 2 years, he withheld the money from her to try and push her into divorce. And she still wouldn't do it because divorce at that time was a social hazard for everyone involved. And so eventually she did get the money from him, and she used it in combination with her savings to be savvy and purchase a house in London and the neighboring house, which she rented out for income, and continued her life in separation. So, girl boss.
Queen.
Hell yeah.
Yes.
But she still wouldn't budge on the divorce. And then, so finally, she agrees, like, okay, whatever, let's do it. I have the money. Like, this isn't going to be a total hazard. And then fate intervened once again. On June 8th, 1905, William Low died of what historians suspect, but no one can confirm, was a seizure.
Oh, damn.
Enter Juliette's widow era, because she was a widow and she did not have children. And it was the turn of the century. And if you are a rich widow without children, what you do is you find a philanthropic project to focus on.
Okay.
So, it is now 1911. She's been going in between Savannah and London. And in London, she happens to go to a party. Enter Lord Robert Baden-Powell and his sister Agnes. And the important thing about Robert Baden-Powell is that he was the head of the Boy Scouts of the UK, which later gave birth to the Boy Scouts of the USA. And with 40,000 members through Europe and the United States, Boy Scouts stress the importance of both military preparedness and having fun. Two values who the very boisterous and very intelligent Juliette Low really liked. And so Robert said, "Hey, Juliette, have you met my sister Agnes?" And Juliette's like, "No, why?" And Robert goes, "Because she runs the Girl Guides of the UK." And so, sidebar about Agnes Baden-Powell and the Girl Guides. the Girl Guides actually came about because the girls of the UK didn't give a fuck. They just started registering with the Boy Scouts.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No fucks given. And, despite the pushback from the organization and boys and men, because as quoted from the Scout Headquarters Gazette, which was the magazine of the UK Boy Scouts, if a girl is not allowed to run or even hurry, to swim, ride a bike, or raise her arms above her head, how can she become a scout? And the girls yearned for the outdoors. So they showed up in droves to a Boy Scout rally at the Crystal Palace exhibition space in London, despite not having tickets. And Lord Baden-Powell relented and told Agnes to start her own version of Scouts for Girls, mostly to manage the publicity issues about the feminization of Scouts. So in 1910, Agnes said, okay, and the Girl Guides Association was created, and it continues to evolve over time. And this is important because we flip back to 1911, where Juliette says, wow, that's really cool. I want to be involved with that. And Agnes said, okay, here's how we do this. And so one August day at Juliette's home in Scotland, she ran a patrol, which is what we would call a modern troop of Girl Guides. And she taught them to care for livestock, to spin wool, and to become self-sufficient. And she also taught knot tying, map reading, knitting, cooking, and first aid, while her friends with military connections instructed them in drilling, which is military parade technique, signaling like semaphore and Morse code, and camping. But Juliette was not content to run her patrol out of Scotland. This was not the end. She organized 2 more patrols in London. And then she went, okay, this is good. And then she went, but I'm not done. I want to return to America. And so on March 9th in 1912, when she arrived back to her home in Savannah, Georgia, she had the idea. And she knew just who to drag into it. Her cousin, Nia Tape, was an educator and someone who Juliette was really close with, the kind of person you got into trouble with. And so Juliette picked up the phone, called Nina, and famously said, come right over. I've got something for the girls of Savannah and all America and all the world, and we're going to start it tonight. And so she started the American branch of the Girl Guides. And the first 2 Girl Guide patrols contains 18 girls in total, and the headquarters were in the carriage house, which is basically a house for staff behind Juliette's home in Savannah. And she knew that one of her primary powers as a woman of means was social networking, and so she networked. She pulled on friends and family to become troop leaders and volunteers. She gathered young girls she knew to become members. And she even went as far as advertising in magazines and newspapers, going, hey, we have a Girl Guides patrol now. Come join us. She went so far as to try to contact then President Taft.
Oh my gosh.
He unfortunately declined to support this. But
That's why you got stuck in a bathtub, you dumb bitch.
F's in the chat.
But you're starting to see the theme here. She's very stubborn. So she writes back to Lord Baden-Powell and Agnes, who connect her with others interested in the scouting movements. And she goes so far as to make several good faith attempts to get rival scout-style programs to join in with her. Most prominently, she wanted the rival organization, the Campfire Girls, to join in. And because she was smart. She knew, oh, that's where I can pull a lot of girls from.
Mm.
Unfortunately, their founder in America, who was also a prominent executive of Boy Scouts, James E. West, believes that the activities of the Girl Scouts were too masculine, and he wanted the Campfire Girls to stay feminine. Also, fragile masculinity has been around forever because he feared that if he endorsed girls partaking in such activities, people would question the masculinity of the Boy Scouts.
Bruh.
Yeah, wild.
If a girl does it, it means I'm not a man anymore.
Right? Like,
Yep.
come on, guys.
Like, holy crap.
So Juliette said, okay, that's fine. But the Campfire Girls were still growing faster than her Girl Guides. That was something up with which Juliette would not put. So another visit to England, and she has the next idea, and she endeavors to change the name from Girl Guides to Girl Scouts to emphasize the adventurous aspects. Luckily, by the time she got home, her patrols of guides have already come up with this idea. Yeah, and they said, oh yeah, we're Girl Scouts now, because it reminded them of America's pioneer history.
Oh.
So the girls were very ready for that and very industrious. So James E. West reared his head again and objected to the name change of the Girl Scouts. He claimed that it trivialized the name of scouting and would cause older Boy Scouts to quit. Juliette did not care for West's objections. And it was often said of her that she used her deafness as an excuse to say she did not hear objections to her ideas of protest. Which, that's not verified. However, it's one of those pieces of folklore that we can pretty well infer was true.
Yeah.
While all of this was going on, and while Juliette was seeking to change the world was experiencing its own changes. By this point, it's the 1900s, and they are trying to get votes for women. The suffrage movement, which, side note, people may not know this, but suffragette was actually a title made up to mock the women who wanted the vote. So,
Really?
yeah. So if you're referring to women who were campaigning to get the vote and for women's rights, suffragists is the correct term.
Oh, cool.
Correct and gender neutral.
Yeah.
And it was becoming especially prominent, and so girls and women were in the focus. But also by this point, the suffragists had started to picket the White House, hunger strike, and end up in jail for being disruptive. So Juliette had to make a decision, and she insisted that the Girl Scouts wasn't a feminist or suffragistic organization and was in fact politically neutral. Not because of her personal feelings, because there is some historical evidence that she was in favor in her personal life, but this was once again Juliette showing her savvy, that with the direct association of suffrage, people would start to turn against the Girl Scout program, and that would take away the material good that she was doing to help girls get independent and self-sufficient. And she is quoted as saying, "If it is thoroughly understood by everybody that the Girl Scouts are neutral, we will be left out of all practical and religious controversies. To leave anyone in doubt means in this instance to arouse the suspicion and perhaps the enmity of 800 suffragettes in Savannah. Neither you nor I nor any representative of Girl Scouts has any option about handling a question on suffrage because we have no right to vote at all." Essentially, breaking this down, it was her opinion that since women didn't have much power yet, they best not endanger the little power they do have. She was teaching the girls self-sufficiency, independence, outdoor skills, and emergency preparedness. She was more concerned about walking the walk than talking the talk of that independence movement, especially when you take into account the award known as the Golden Eaglet. And the Golden Eaglet is the predecessor to the modern Girl Scout Gold Award. It's the highest award that a girl of that time could have gotten. And to get it was to be recognized by the Girl Scout organization that you were the peak of Girl Scout and therefore the peak of being a modern American girl. Pretty progressive at the time. Especially because there were 15 specific badges required, including being an athlete, studying the natural world through birds, flowers, and animals, knowing how to take care of children, knowing how the government worked through the citizen badge, knowing how to cook, how to be a dressmaker, how to take care of your money with the economist badge, first aid, health guardian, which was like public health type stuff, being a homemaker, being a nurse, a hostess, a laundress, and a pioneer, which was the general hiking badge. And they also had to do 6 other badges that they selected themselves. Those were just the required skills.
Oh my god. They thought of being everything.
Yeah.
Like, let's be real here. That's crazy.
And what did the Boy Scouts have to do? Tie a
Make
knot,
little tiny cars.
tie a knot. That was it. Just once.
Oh boy, we do have some modern opinions.
Oh.
But that's a story for another day.
Yeah.
Girl Scouts versus Boy Scouts.
It's gonna be a WWE episode.
Yeah. Absolute smackdown.
This Monday, get ready.
God.
And so, and it also involved either receiving 2 letters of commendation, which are like reference letters like you would get for applying to college, or a Medal of Merit, which involves saving someone's life.
Gosh, that's crazy.
And having all of this reviewed by the board in New York.
Damn.
Yeah, Golden Eaglet. They did not fuck about with this one.
Yeah.
Although, fun fact, did you know that modern Girl Scouts also have 2 different medals of honors they can get, depending on if they save someone's life with personal risk to themselves or without personal risk?
Really?
But they do actually have little medals of honor that you can apply to get from council.
Huh. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is wild to me, and I've never met a girl with one, but it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Right? Do you remember, I mean, this isn't a girl, so I shouldn't talk about them. But do you remember Steven? He had the Boy Scout version of that. He saved someone from drowning.
Wow.
And yeah, crazy. But fuck him, he's not a lady.
Yeah. And so all of this was going on. And then World War I hits.
Yay!
And Juliette says, this is awful, and this is an opportunity.
True.
Yeah?
Because she believed in this program. And so we have President Woodrow Wilson in the White House. Juliette's going, okay, Taft didn't work. Maybe I can talk to Wilson about this. And she attempted to get endorsement and support because she had started a national headquarters for Girl Scouts in Washington, D.C. in 1913 to be the kind of Girl Scout Central where they could get their handbooks and their badges. Oh, and the handbook was aptly named How Girls Can Help Their Country.
Cute.
Hell yeah.
I wish I had brought my facsimile edition along because it is wild seeing what they used to do. And so, yes. And Low still continued to fund most of Girl Scouts out of her own pockets. So this is her doing this all alone and, slowly building up her support. But she was still funding it out of her pockets. So in 1914, she was like, we need money. And so she sold her matching set of pearls that were a cherished wedding gift from her husband before she figured out that he was a piece of work.
Yeah.
And she wasn't really happy about it because back then it was still kind of the era of, women don't really have money of their own. Like, they do still need to generally rely on stuff that they can, like material goods they can sell. However, she is quoted as saying, jewels are not important, but my Girl Scouts are. They need the money more than I need pearls. And yeah.
Can we have...
That's a bumper sticker.
Yes. We need to get her consciousness, Juliette Gordon Low's consciousness, into the government currently. That's what we need.
Mm-hmm.
One of you use her brain. Anyway.
Yep, because she preferred to spend that money on renting the headquarters and continuing to legitimize the movement, which she also did in 1914 by filing a patent for the design of the original three-leafed trefoil Girl Scouts membership pin, which basically the symbolism of which, for those who aren't familiar with Girl Scouts, is that the three leaves of the trefoil stand for the three parts of the Girl Scout promise, and the design contains the traditional American symbols of an eagle, a shield, a shaft of arrows, and an olive branch.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's the original traditional design.
Interesting.
So it was very American.
That sounds American.
She loved her country. And with the start of World War I and with America getting involved, she proved why the Girl Scouts were a good fit as an American program. She moved the headquarters to New York and arranged the Girl Scouts to work with the Red Cross program to support the war effort with President Hoover. 2,400 registered Girl Scouts did good as much as possible by making surgical dressings to send and knitting clothes for soldiers, as well as picking oakum, which was basically like a patching material for holes of various things, sweeping workrooms, creating scrapbooks for wounded soldiers to make them feel better, and making smokeless trench candles for soldiers to heat their food without being detected.
Wow.
Which I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, they produced those
that's awesome.
with Girl Scouts' help. And so President Hoover actually said, and wrote to Juliette to encourage more expansion of the Girl Scouts and to thank her for the work because, it's that whole concept of like help on the home front.
Mm-hmm.
And because of this, Juliette convinced the First Lady, Lou Henry Hoover, to be the official vice president of the Girl Scouts of the USA. So literally, First Lady was the vice president of the organization, which is kind of major if you think about it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Especially because, again, women in society, like, there were certain projects that were considered appropriate. And so now, here they are, like, that's a huge point of legitimacy. Yeah. And so they also got former President Wilson's second wife, Edith, to be the honorary president of the Girl Scouts of the USA, which that is a tradition that continues, that every time a new First Lady comes to the White House, they are named the honorary president of the Girl Scouts.
Oh, that's cute.
What? Oh my god.
Yep, highest woman in the land, and you can take that as
yeah, we all just pieced it together at the same time.
Yeah,
And
I was going to say something about Michelle Obama, but I think she probably loves that. But
yeah, Michelle Obama, Jill Biden, like a lot of First Ladies were Girl Scouts. And you can.
Yeah, I'm sure that wasn't in the movie, but anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's more of a point of honor by this point, kind of showing how interlinked Girl Scouts is with America as a concept.
Huh.
And so, great. Juliette has built a program, and she knows what they're doing and kind of why they're doing it. And by 1917, she built the national headquarters, and everything was great, and she had a team assembled. And one of the final problems was how to fund the troops of Girl Scouts for activities and service projects. Because once again, she had been doing this out of her own pocket for a long time. And, she wasn't going to last forever. Luckily, the Girl Scouts were industrious, because in December of that year, the Mistletoe Troop of Muskogee, Oklahoma, which, to contextualize, back when the troops were so small in number, they used to just be identified by the crest. So Mistletoe Troop, or like down on the South Shore of Boston, there used to be the Red Rose Troop.
Oh.
And then once the movement grew, then we started getting the troop numbers.
Right.
That's cool.
So the Mistletoe Troop in Muskogee took initiative to bake simple sugar cookies and sell them in their high school cafeteria to fund their service projects. And so by 1922, national headquarters finally saw, hey, this is working. And gave the official permission and sent out an official recipe, and basically said, you have full permission to bake these cookies and sell them for 30 cents a dozen, which, with estimated inflation at the time of writing, that's about $5.80 per box. So,
wow.
Yeah, no one complained about the price of Girl Scout cookies, because it's actually pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
I'm just going to say, that's not bad.
Right? Dang.
Yep. But then again, I don't really know how inflation works. I'm just a Girl Scout historian.
Yeah.
It's all made up. We came up with numbers anyway.
Yep, everything is made up and points don't matter. And yes. So now we are in the 1920s. The Girl Scouts of the USA has approached 70,000 members, and established a presence in nearly every state, including Hawaii. And Juliette Gordon Low was in her 60s by this point, and she had thoroughly outstripped James West and his Campfire Girls and started the movement. And she decided, all right, things are pretty well set up. I'm going to step back, and I want to continue to promote scouting worldwide. But before she stepped back entirely, she organized the first National Girl Scout Convention in Savannah, where she invited special guests like prominent athletes, the mayor, the school superintendent, and others who cared for the movement. And she went so far as to hire a film company to document the event. Now note that film was very expensive back in 1922.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, holy shit. I'm just thinking about, I did a paper on movies in the 1920s, and I'm like, yeah, they were still, it was Nickelodeons, and it was still silent films, and like, they were, yeah.
Yep.
Damn.
And so she continued her work, and in between all her promotional work for Scouting for Girls, she even became a passenger in an open cockpit biplane. There exists a photo of Juliette Low and some silent footage of her and the pilot.
I'm gonna find this. I'm locating it.
Yep.
Oh, I'm so excited.
And so she did not let anyone stop her. And unfortunately, she was not going to let anyone stop her until she was stopped. because the decline of Juliette's life was one she deliberately kept quiet. In 1923, she was diagnosed with malignant tumors of her breasts. And she kept it a secret. But by 1925, she was informed she had 6 months to live. The only solution to her, what would you do if you were told you were dying?
Wreck shit? I don't know. Like,
Do
just go
everything
haywire, right?
Yeah, do everything I always wanted to do.
So did she. So her only logical solution was to sneak away from treatment to speak at a Girl Scout conference in Virginia, and several other sneak away trips, including a visit with Helen Sturrow, who was another notable philanthropist who worked in and around Boston and who did a lot of work with the council that is now the Girl Scouts of Eastern Massachusetts at Camp Cedar Hill in Waltham. And so Juliette continued her crusade and ended up living more than 6 months and went to Liverpool, England for experimental treatment to try and cure herself. Unfortunately, said treatments involved IVs of colloidal lead.
Oh, no.
Yeah, once again, medicine was not the strong suit.
What year was this?
This was in 25. And yeah. So 25, 26, she spent mostly recovering from lead poisoning. And when she returned to Savannah, her doctor informed her, really, I'm sorry, but this is it. You're on your way out. And so she spent her last 3 months at her home in Savannah and died in 1927 at the age of 66. To contextualize how much they loved her, over 250 Girl Scouts left school and came to attend the funeral, including an honor guard of Girl Scouts to escort the casket alongside the pallbearers, which was, it's heartbreakingly incredible, but that kind of impact. And she was buried in her Girl Scout uniform with a note tucked in her pocket. And I actually sobbed the first time I read this. You are not only the first Girl Scout, but the best Girl Scout of them all.
Oh my god!
I know. Grab a tissue.
Holy shit, dude!
Yeah. And so,
Boink.
thankfully, all her life's work was not in vain, because 1 year later, in 1928, the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts was formed. And if you're a Girl Scout, or if you knew a Girl Scout, you would know that we wear a pin on our uniform that's a gold trefoil with 2 stars on a blue background. That's the symbol of WAGs. And WAGs is comprised of Girl Scouting and Guiding organizations in 153 countries and territories. And they collectively operate 5 different world centers for Girl Scouts and Girl Guides, including our chalet in the Swiss Alps, the Pax Lodge in London, forgive me, I don't speak Spanish, but Nuestra Cabana in Mexico, Sangam in India, and the roaming program in Africa, which moves around every 3 years, known as Kusafiri, which is currently set in Ghana for 2026 until, I believe, 2029, when the WAGS convention reconvenes. Juliette and her commitment to World Connection all those years ago now enables girls and volunteers to collaborate, stay, play, and work at cross-cultural friendship in the World Centers. And today, the Girl Scouts of the USA has over 2 million members spread across 111 area councils, as well as the USA Girl Scouts Overseas, which is a council specifically that works with military families, primarily in Germany and Japan, but they're spread all over the place. And you can pretty much look anywhere in history and find Girl Scouts somewhere. From World War I, like I mentioned, knitting clothes and making candles, to the Great Depression, where they learned to can food and supported the efforts to relieve all the hunger that's happening, to running salvage drives in World War II, and to being active participants in the desegregated troops of the 1960s and onward, which the 1960s, the desegregation of Girl Scouts is a whole other story. But it was very much, it had its pushback, but generally it was considered a really good progressive thing.
Yeah.
And so onward until now, where service leadership and fun remains the core of Girl Scouts. And it remains the program, or one of the forerunning programs, to build and bring together, as their latest slogan is, to build girls of courage, confidence, and character. Just as Juliette lived her life and left her legacy on society. And I think that is my favorite example of how women can affect society, because she wasn't necessarily political. She was just determined. She had her idea, she loved her idea, and she loved her girls. And, you know, it didn't matter what she said, she just did.
Oh man, dude.
Yeah.
I told you I was excited for that, and you fucking knocked it out of the park. Like,
That was
you
insane.
understood the fucking assignment. I am genuinely inspired. Like, that was amazing. So,
That was beautiful. So, we've talked about how society has impacted women. We've talked about how women have impacted society. Now, I am going to talk about a very special person to me, and to, I feel, InfoDump in general, on how she has impacted us. So, not to downplay my person whatsoever. I think she is awesome and she's incredible and she has a big impact on us. But I will say my snippet on her is a lot shorter, and I feel as though you guys' stories were very moving. I don't think mine's going to be as moving, but not to downplay her whatsoever. Okay. This will be on the screen, but just for dramatic effect, I'm talking about Brittany Broski, okay? Our modern girl, okay? Brittany Broski, or known as Brittany Alexis Tomlinson. You all know her, the kombucha girl. Come on now.
I didn't know that that's how she got viral. I've never seen the kombucha video.
I only know her because
What?
of Church and Mattel.
Fair. No, totally
Yeah.
fair. You don't know the kombucha video?
No.
I'll recreate it for you right now. But basically, she gets kombucha. I'll show you it too, and we can.
Oh, no, I think I know it, actually.
Right, we'll clip it into here, and I have a gif of it actually.
Yes.
that's her?
Yeah, that's pretty Broski. For those who don't know the kombucha video, she takes a kombucha, she smells it, and she's like, it smells like a public restroom. It's like nasty. She takes a sip of it, and she's like, nah, well, and then she starts laughing. So that's like the whole thing. We'll clip it in here, but that's where she pretty much got her start. But I'll get to that in a second. But Brittany Broski, we're going to talk about her today and her impact on me personally, and InfoDump, and the podcasting world in general. Okay. So Brittany Broski was born May 10th, 1997, Taurus Queen.
Hell yeah.
In Dallas, Texas. She does have siblings. I did not mention them in here just because
Her birthday is a week after mine, and yours is 3 weeks after mine.
she's in between us. I know.
Crazy. So we have to invite her and make her
No,
part
she's
of the
awesome.
pod.
But I was also like, the entire time you were talking about Diana, I was like 1997, because you said 1997. You said something in there. You'll probably interject it when I talk about it. I don't remember. But like, there's so many like things that I'm like, this relates to that. So
we've had a lot of similar dates this episode.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's kind of crazy.
it gets even crazier. Okay, so May 10th, remember that, 1997 in Dallas, Texas. As a child of a military family, she moved around frequently, but primarily lived in southern states in America, as well as South Korea. And then in 2023, she relocated Broski Nation headquarters to Madrid.
When was that?
2023.
Oh shit.
I don't think she lives there currently. I know she lived in LA after she blew up and she started doing all her podcasting and stuff. So I don't know currently where she resides, but 2023, that's the last I read about it, that she had Broski Nation was in Madrid. And I knew she lived there for a little while. So but Brittany this is why I want to talk about Brittany too, because she is a fellow fangirl, if I can interject onto my personal life and background. I'm a fangirl. Okay, I've written a Wattpad story here or there, maybe. Those are in the archives. No one's gonna read those, but
I'm finding them. They're going up.
Oh no, they're not. But we've all had. I mean, not all. I guess I'm not gonna say all, but for the most part, I feel like a lot of us have had our special interests, and with my friend group and my friends, I feel like it's a lot of pop culture related. But Brittany spent her preteen and teen years involved in theater productions and other creative outlets like writing fan fictions on Tumblr. Eventually, she would graduate from Texas A&M with her degree in communications and a minor in Spanish.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, Madrid makes more sense now.
Yeah. She's not fluent, I wouldn't say, to my knowledge, but she speaks Spanish very well. And she's had guests on her projects that I'll get into that speak Spanish, and she's able to have a full conversation with them.
Wait, a Bad Bunny Britney collab? A quadruple B?
Quadruple B?
She's getting tagged. We're posting that.
Oh, no, because she said that, okay, now we're interrupting what I had going, but it's okay. She, on one of her things, she said that we're not ready for her next guest, so it could be Bad Bunny, but everyone's saying it's Harry Styles.
Okay.
So, because Aperture just came out and his album's coming out, and we stay tuned. We'll know by the time this is posted, I think. But anyway, post-college and pre-internet stardom, Broski worked at a bank in trust and investment. Her viral post, the kombucha video, as I've named it, I mean, she's known on the internet as the kombucha girl, would be posted to TikTok in August of 2019, subsequently leading to her termination at the bank. Her boss at the bank was like, yeah, we saw your video. We don't like that. We think it's a bad image, and we're going to fire you for it. So they let her go.
That's absurd.
Yeah. They didn't like
Like,
that.
it wasn't even a scandalous video.
It just garnered a lot of attention. And I think, now I don't know for a fact, but I'm going to interject as to how it got famous, and this is maybe why. I don't know if it's this video in specific or the context of how it blew up. But the famous kombucha video, and I quote it smells like a public restroom, because it's funny. That was August 6th, 2019. And then I wrote, thank gay Twitter for us. If gay Twitter didn't exist, you wouldn't have Brittany Broski. Just saying. So let me see if it's in my notes here. I got 40 million views within a month, and it's ranked as TikTok's top 10 most viral video in 2019. So pretty crazy. So basically, gay Twitter just needs to take a clip of us and put it on there, and then we'll go viral.
Yes.
So that's where I was getting with that. Okay. So Brittany Broski is obviously not her last name. Broski's just, hey, Broski. So Brittany Broski, her fame and following. Let me see where. Okay, going on the right track. I have two different things going here. Okay. So on TikTok, she started in 2019 under the username BrittanyT445. Just random name, you know. She didn't have the Broski tag yet. But as of right now, she's got 7.5 million followers to date. And she does have a second account called Lost My Marbles Again. It's a secret account. It's a private account, and she accepts followers every once in a while. I'm in it. And it has 5.9 million followers. Her Instagram, she also started in 2019. I think everything, once the kombucha video kind of went viral, she scrapped everything she had from high school and college and just started fresh. She has 2.1 million followers, and then her Royal Court and the wow, her Royal Court and the Broski Report, they rhyme, collectively have over 1.1 million followers. So Royal Court, I'll get more into it, but it's her talk show, and then the Broski Report is her podcast. On YouTube, her first video was uploaded in 2019, and I'm going to get back to that in a second. It has 2.6 million followers to date, and she does high makeup videos where she literally gets high and she does her makeup. She does gameplay run-throughs and even has special guests like Trixie Mattel. I went back and I watched her first video because I wanted to put in my notes the exact date that she had uploaded it. It was in October of 2018. I actually never even wrote the official date down because I got distracted by her intro, because her intro is farts. It's literally her being like, and I was like, of course. And I wrote, it's all farts. It's all farts. So it just leads back to farts.
It always does.
So anyway. So her creative projects and endeavors, she was on the For You podcast. It was a TikTok hosted podcast where, like the For You page. It's called the For You podcast. It was hosted in 2021, and she would have special guests on. She would interview other creative, high-performing influencers on the app. Her first one, I watched this one. Her first ever interview was with Frankie Jonas. Thought that was relevant because I love Frankie Jonas. Anyone who knows me knows I'm obsessed with Frankie Jonas, and I cried when I saw him at the Jonas Brothers concert. So they were talking about how she films primarily while she's on the toilet. Because, and he said, I do too. So,
hell yeah.
You know what, guys?
We gotta start filming on the toilet.
Yeah. And then just another funny internet thing, because this is going kind of crazy right now. She also had interviewed Michaela Nogueira at one point. So
who's that?
Who's that is crazy. She's that. She's that. She does makeup videos, and she just posted that she's getting a divorce from her husband, and it's going mega viral.
Oh damn! I'll have to look into her later. I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of controversial, so I'm not gonna talk about it right now. But I will show you. Trust me. Let's see. She also had a podcast with her friend Sarah Shower. I think that's how you say her last name. They lived together in Los Angeles in 2021-ish time. But their podcast was called Violating Community Guidelines, and it was a pop culture podcast that they hosted from 2022 to 2023. Sarah had been just blank on a word. Sarah had been on her YouTube multiple times, just when they would just film different videos, but then they decided to do Violating Community Guidelines. She would do this podcast with Sarah, and then eventually they would dissolve the podcast, and she would go into what is now the Broski Report. The Broski Report is a solo hosted podcast for Broski Nation, where she basically does what we do. She kind of just, oh, hello, welcome. She basically just talks about anything and everything. It's kind of an info dump, but it's very introspective, I will say. I feel not that we're not introspective, but I feel she is so poetic in how she explains things. It just is a keynote. And then she also has Royal Court. It's a medieval style talk show where she has celebrity guests. She has interviewed Dylan O'Brien, Cole Sprouse. I'm trying to think. She's interviewed so many people on that show. Right?
We watched one.
It was Rob from It's Always Sunny.
Yes,
Rob,
yes. McElhenney.
Rob McElhenney, I couldn't think of his last name. She's interviewed so many, Rob McElhenney of all people. It's just great. She's interviewed so many people. So that's why people think Harry Styles is next on Royal Court.
Right.
Just because so it's really funny. The Cole Sprouse interview, she had mentioned to him, to his face, that she has written fan fiction about him.
Oh my god!
She literally straight up was yeah, so I used to write fanfic about you when I was in high school.
High school?
Or maybe college. I don't know.
Well, I guess I know him from Sweet Life.
True.
I don't know. What was the other one that he was in? Was he in Riverdale?
Yeah. I don't know if it was about Riverdale, but yeah. So her creative projects also have a cult following. On TikTok, Royal Court has 7.15 thousand followers. The Broski Report has 1.3 million followers. On YouTube, Broski Report has 1.3 million followers and 273 videos, averaging about 1 million views per video. Royal Court has 984,000 followers and 135 videos. I actually did not get the view count, but it was pretty much 500K plus on each video. And then Violating Community Guidelines is no longer running, but as of right now, they still technically have 239,000 followers. I don't know if that number has gone down since they're not posting anymore and people have unsubscribed, but that's what that had. Instagram, Royal Court and Broski Report have 1.1 million followers collectively. And then on Spotify, I did want to add Spotify because we primarily use Spotify for our podcast. The Broski Report is ranked number 82 in top podcasts and has a 4.9 out of 5 rating out of 61,000 reviews.
All right.
So it does pretty good. It's number 25 in comedy podcasts. And her debut episode is the 4th most streamed podcast in the entire United States.
Wow.
So,
Dang.
episode. Yeah. Okay. Brittany is a true literary. Okay? So now I want to talk about how I think when I said she's introspective, I want her to write a poetry book, genuinely. Like, I think she would be a great writer. She speaks so effortlessly and so, like, eloquently. Like, everything she says is just, and she understands. Like, she genuinely, I feel like she's reading something that's from my mind. Like, she just gets the human experience so well. So this is a quote from her podcast episode from the Broski Report on November 18th. The episode is titled, "This Still Keeps Me Up at Night," and she goes into, I actually didn't watch this episode, I just watched this clip of it, but I'm pretty sure it's like psychological stories, like, not necessarily ghost stories, but like psychological stories. But anyway, in the middle of this episode, she does a segment where she gets fan questions and people send her in like things that are like, hey, like, what's your favorite book? Well, blah, 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 blah. That kind of stuff. So a fan sent her a question, and it was, what is something about yourself that you find hard to understand? So she goes, I am someone else entirely when you remove the need to be loved. There's so much of a woman's existence. You can decenter men. She's speaking just off the dome, so it's kind of broken up a little bit, but there's so much of a woman's existence. You can decenter men, but this shit is wired into our blood. If I'm not desired and I'm not loved, who am I, right? And of course I know who I am, but there's this monstrous part of me that so deeply desires to be loved. It's almost like when I get it, I worry I won't know how to hold it. Mind you, she's wearing a dinosaur costume when she says this. So, just for context of the clip. But I cried. I literally cried. Like, I literally heard that and I was like, she gets it. Like, she totally she understands. So I think she should write a poetry book, genuinely. Where else was I? So, okay. Now, relating her, I feel like my segment is going to be so quick. I actually only have like 3 slides left. Relating her to InfoDump, and to us personally, I think she took what was somewhat of a bad situation, I'm saying, as she was fired from her job because she posted that video. And she turned it into something incredible. And I have stuff in here. Here is a quote from a Yahoo Entertainment interview that she did. I went to college, I did the corporate job, I got fired, I got a new job, I got a certificate in my job, and just to think that never would have been enough for me, like so many people. I'm very lucky. I wanted to turn it into something bigger than just making YouTube videos once a week. It's like building a company, building teams, building IP and a brand. It's strange to turn yourself into a brand, but on the internet you have to do that. you know, you have to use yourself as a commodity, which is dystopian, but it's the name of the game. It's Hollywood. So she really took herself and she branded herself. I mean, the Broski report, like it's all branded to her, and I just think that's so inspiring to take something that like it's memeable and make it into something so great. And I mean, there's a million stories of other, sorry, I just hit you. There is stories of thousands of other influencers who take moments like that and then end up using it for like getting famous from it, quote unquote famous, like, and making other creative projects with it. But I think she knows that she's done that, and her platform, she's very outspoken. Like she has talked about political things, and she has talked about like environmental things and just society. Like she doesn't just like Michaela Nogueira, for example, she uses her platform to showboat. Brittany does not do that. So I think that's notable as to why I put in Michaela Nogueira, because the video that she just went viral for her divorce is so telling of that she does not care about her audience and she only cares about the fame and the fortune. And it's disheartening because Michaela Nogueira is pretty much from my hometown.
Damn.
A friend of mine went to college with her, so it's like we kind of know her to an extent, like of where she grew up and her background. Not that I know her personally, but like I just know that she, in the beginning of her career, she has said things of like, I'm so grateful, and now it just doesn't seem that way anymore. But don't know her personally. Let's see, where was I? Oh, so I actually have more of the royal court guests. She's had Saoirse Ronan on her podcast, or royal court. She was in Little Woman. Lady Bird.
Yeah.
She had Charlie XCX on there.
Love
I didn't
that.
even know she had Charlie XCX. Hassan Piker, who I've mentioned. He was in Necessary Conversation.
Yep.
Yeah. She said that Royal Court was actually inspired by Sean Evans' Hot Ones.
No, that's so funny because I remember watching that and being like, it's giving Hot Ones.
Yeah. No,
Like-
yeah. It's basically hot because, yeah, it's Hot Ones, but like medieval themed instead of just like eating hot wings.
Right? Like you've got a theme, you've got an action,
Yeah.
you've got a vibe.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
But yeah, they're both basically, they're pop culture and fan culture. As I've said, she is a super fan. All right, so I didn't have this in my original notes, but I was doing, you like made me think of this. I don't know why I didn't even like think of. I basically just researched Brittany and kind of had what she means to me and to InfoDump, but then you were, hey, we're trying to film a podcast here.
Yeah, she doesn't care. She said, I'm a woman, talk about me.
Okay. So apart from my my PowerPoint slides and what I had for Brittany, you mentioned you wanted to know some more information about like women in the podcasting world specifically. So I just did a little quick deep dive into that. So NPR did a research study in November of 2025 of over 600 of the most popular podcasts. Within the top 100 of those, 2/3 of those were hosted by men or had men as guest stars in them. So we are very underrepresented in the podcasting realm. It said finance, business, tech, sports, and comedy. Women were like not a part of, basically. Women mainly represent art, true crime, society, culture, and news and education. So get us as your comedy podcast, guys.
Right? We're making waves.
We're funny.
We're paving the way for comedy women.
Oh yeah. Women can be funny, guys. Come on now.
Come on. It's 2026, guys. We're allowed to be funny.
Okay. All right. So some context for InfoDump. We met in college in 2019. We have collaborated on our a cappella group. At one point, Maddie was going to be president. I was going to be vice president. You were secretary, I was treasurer.
Yeah,
we've
we
had
were
our
living the dream.
Oh yeah.
We were in government, guys.
Oh yeah, guys. I also did PR. Don't forget that. We lived together for almost 2 years, right? Broken up into segments, but pretty much 2 years. And we officially created InfoDump in 2024. So I think based on our collaborative efforts, we have taken Brittany's comedic style and kind of used that. Her relatability and her point of view on things, and her creative outlooks and personal goals. Like, she genuinely wants to continue to create and have all these avenues to let other women hear what it is to be a woman in 2026 and in this society and in this world of misogyny and all these other things, and just existing as a woman. And especially with the uptick in social media and how comparing yourself to literally anyone under the sun is so accessible. I think she, in her podcast episode, she really, I think I commented this on our account on her, one of her videos was she really hit the nail in the coffin with that one. She just genuinely just understands to a level that is so exactly what I would say, how I would say it. So I think her impact on me is she very much just is relatable. I also wanted to point out, as much as I love Brittany, and this is all about Brittany, we do have some other creatives that we have been inspired by to start this podcast. So I wrote Grant and Maya from While I Laughed there because we love them. I wrote Curtis Connor because I love Curtis Connor, and Very Really Good is what inspired me to want to start doing a podcast. And his YouTube style and his videos. And then I wrote, when I said this earlier, iCarly is the blueprint, to be honest.
No, literally.
Because if it wasn't for iCarly, we would not have this.
Yeah.
Genuinely, as much as I say Brittany and Curtis and While I Laughed have, and even you were talking about Allie from the Oddities.
Yeah,
podcast. Ologies, sorry.
Yeah.
As much as they have influenced us, it really was iCarly.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really think about it, and that's honestly, it's funny too, because Shane Top was on iCarly, and that's kind of how Smosh got started, because if he wasn't doing that kind of creative outlook,
right, Smosh
and BuzzFeed and all that, so I think that's funny. It
all goes back to iCarly.
It really kind of does.
Miranda Cosgrove is actually a deity.
She is Michael Jackson.
Miranda Cosgrove is reincarnated Michael Jackson. Hell yeah.
So, yeah.
It's escalating. I don't know where we're going.
No, I don't know either. See, this is what happens when it comes to my segment. We had the emotional segments. Right. We had the nice.
Now we gotta get weird.
We were revving up for the weirdness. It usually happens with me.
Okay. I'll ride that escalator.
That's fine. You know what? Right here's just some pictures. I don't know. Other than the one picture in the middle, I don't really know why I put them on here, but I did want to point out that she has a tattoo that is "Modernity Has Failed Us," and I absolutely love that. And it's a line from the 1975 song "Love It If We Made It." And every time I think of that line, I think of her and I think of you, because when we went to the 1975 concert, we were touching the ceiling at TD Garden.
Yeah.
Touching the ceiling.
Yeah.
And watching Subway Surfers. But
that too. That was, yeah. Anyway.
Anywho. My last crazy bit here is Brittany Broski, Marie Antoinette.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, you saw this?
I beg your pardon?
So, for context for the people here, she looks exactly like her.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
She looks exactly like her. So, yeah. Basically, where did I write that? There is a clip that I'm gonna show them in a second. That we'll obviously put on the screen. Where she talks about she went to the Palace of Versailles, and she basically said she had a "That's So Raven" moment where she was in a room and she was like, I don't know if this was Marie Antoinette's room or who it was, but she immediately just felt like she was supposed to be there. She immediately felt alive. She said she's never felt more alive. And it was also, I was quickly looked up Marie Antoinette. She was in the Palace of Versailles or whatever on May 10th. That was like May 10th, and she Brittany's birthday's May 10th. So wrote that down. But let me see if I can find the clips.
The duality of being a woman,
Yes,
and being able to hold this serious conversation and then to make it completely absurd.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
that is the epitome of what we're doing and what women are doing.
Right, and exactly, and she makes it in such a digestible way of like, she just approaches things, and it's so community based. Like, I feel like I think about this all the time of like, there's somewhere, I don't know who came up with this or wherever, but it's like a trend, quote unquote, on TikTok where it's like you post a bunch of things, like girly things, I'm gonna use that word like in quotes, of like, I always, in every lifetime I choose to be a woman, just because of the community and the different, like, just femininity at its core. It's like, men don't understand what it's like to have a community, to have people to just like, and I'm not saying that they don't, but I feel like they choose not to, and to an extent. Like, they feel like I feel like as a girl and as a woman, we all like have had our like our friend groups from childhood, like we like sleepovers and like all those types of things. It's like, I feel like it's so different, and like I feel like we share so much of ourselves within our female friendships that that men just do not do. And I feel like men will do anything but go to therapy or share their deepest, darkest secrets, you know?
Yeah.
So that's just my take on Brittany, because I feel like also she just like, her podcast is so like, just like friends chatting, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's nice. So, which is kind of what we do. This was another video I wanted to talk about.
What do you like?
So I know, because
pig ears or Dobby ears?
I think they're Dobby ears.
Oh
So
my
this is
God.
the funny, like, this is what I get, like, the duality of a woman. Like, she genuinely will talk about the most, like, gut-wrenching, like, so literary, like, I don't really know how else to describe it, but she'll talk about something so moving, but she'll be wearing like a dragon costume or like Dobby ears. Like, it's just so funny. I genuinely don't remember what I had in my note for that, but basically she's talking about how creatively you need to stop consuming. Like, to be a creative, you need to stop consuming. The only way that you are going to be able to create is if you take a moment back and you just sit with yourself and ask yourself, like she said, what do you like? What do you want to do? Like, what are the core things that make you, basically, of like, do you like to read? Do you hate reading? Do you like classical music? Do you like rap music? Do you like the color purple? Do you not? Like, just genuinely to your core, what are you as a person? And then she also said that she started getting back into air dry clay, which is really funny that we were just talking about that. She started getting back into air dry clay, and she's like, yeah, I used to do that when I was a kid. Like, I used to do crafts with my Nana, and like, why do I not do that anymore? And like, just things like that, of like how, like, she just understands how, like, we need to be a creative, you need to stop consuming, is basically what I wanted to say with that.
I'm going to let go of things that don't serve me. And letting go of some of that stuff, I'm going to leave claw marks on it, because I love some of that stuff and I love some of those people. But those people and those things are not good for me. And that's okay. And in that time, you can be sad, but you can also think to the future. And who am I going to be in 6 months after I've let this thing go? And that's so exciting. And it's so beautiful that I am constantly meeting new versions of me. And I don't know who I'm going to be in 6 months, but I know I'm going to like her. And I know that who I am right now will always be a part of who I will be. And it's very exciting.
Like, yeah, like, it's just so hard to, like,
If there's one word that I think I can use to describe her, it's just raw.
yes,
Like,
she genuinely just, like,
she just fucking puts it all out there.
like, and I just love her vulnerability of, like, these are certain things that we are told to not speak on and to keep to ourselves and only talk to a therapist about. And she just puts this all out on the internet, and she just opens the door for conversation on this. And like now we're literally talking about it here on our podcast. Like she just has opened the door for so many things to relate. Like it's honestly like we don't think about everyone is going through the human experience at the same time, and this is all of our first time living on this earth, and it's just like,
Well, except for Brittany, she had Maria.
well, yeah, I mean, we'll get into that. I'll talk about her on that, but yeah. So just like I just love her. I don't know. Maybe I can find. I don't think I saved the Marie Antoinette video on this account. Maybe.
How many women do you think have those same kinds of thoughts every day, but we don't know because we're all disconnected from each other?
Exactly. Because I say this to myself all the time. Like, I genuinely think I am addicted to my phone. It's so bad, and it's that's one thing. But like, we genuinely are always like just we're on our phones. We're not ever connecting with one another anymore. And it's so sad to like not know how to function in a society where we're born to be connecting with people. We're born to like, this is the whole idea of being a human, is to connect with other people and to have like conversations in person, not to just like, as much as I love the idea that we can now use phones and do all these things and call people from across the world that we couldn't do 100 years ago, but like it doesn't really make up for the fact that now we don't know how to communicate to each other one-on-one. Like it just there's so many downsides to it. Okay, we've jumped around her Marie Antoinette bit for quite a while now. Let me see if I can go back to that.
Does she allow people to eat cake?
I mean,
Is that the right person?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yes, but actually that's a historical controversy of itself because
Yeah,
some people
that's not-
say
Yeah.
that that's not what she said.
Yeah, they're saying it's like a past life regression.
Yeah.
So
Right, because I've heard about that like you can feel really in tune with certain spots that like your potential past life could have been meandering around and stuff.
yeah.
So our goal, we just have to go to everywhere in the world. We're gonna start with the dunes. I'm gonna see if I'm Diana
Okay.
or Alice, and then we're just gonna go around to all our different podcast locations that we've mentioned and see if we're any of those people.
I'm Punxsutawney Phil.
I'm just thinking fucking I'm Spartacus, but I am Punxsutawney Phil, and it's just like they're like, "Where's the groundhog? It's Groundhog Day. What are we supposed to do?" And then like a guy just comes up and he goes, "I am Punxsutawney Phil," and then the audience starts coming up and they're like, "I am Punxsutawney Phil."
I'm Radio Rebel.
Yeah, I'm Radio Rebel.
We're gonna do an episode about Debbie Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was this one? Oh, she's just funny. This was just a funny clip, but not relevant. She just talks about who she would be in medieval times.
All right.
So, not relevant. I don't know. I don't have anything else on the Marie Antoinette bit.
All right.
But to wrap it up, I love Brittany. I hope she loves us someday.
No, literally, Brittany, hit us up.
No, because she is the blueprint. She genuinely, I just feel like I know her. Like I feel like she's a reflection of who I am to some degree. And so I just feel like we vibe. I feel like we'd be besties.
Right?
So
Can we do an episode together?
right, get us on Royal Court. Get us on Broski Report. No, I'm kidding. I don't think she has any people on Broski Report. But I just think that her like her drive to continue to create and be a creative, even in this time in space of the late stage capitalism of the grind, is just go to work, put your head down, and forget about everything else, and not talk about what's going on, and not worry about anything other than paying your rent and paying your bills and just existing in the as a cog in the machine. And I appreciate that she sheds light on some of those things of like, as much as her podcast is a comedy podcast, she'll jump off. She does like comedy. She does have those insightful moments that I think are very important. And she's just an inspiration to how I want our podcast to go in the direction. And just with our endeavors, maybe hinting to our production company, wink, wink,
Wink, wink.
nudge, nudge. So yeah, you're here in the beginning stages if you're listening to this.
Right.
So
yeah, I think this is honestly, I fucking love this episode.
this episode was good.
Like, and I think we're gonna have to do this for next year because I've already got more people in my head to like highlight and like.
Right, and I'm definitely. I always say this, but I do. Come on now.
Beanie. But all right.
I always say this, but I do. I think as each episode goes, I'm getting more inspired to do better deep dives and to have more information and to have more well thought out thoughts. But I think that is the caveat I was talking about of I just consume and I do not create. So that is that. I'm taking your word, Brittany.
Hell yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Shelbers.
Yes.
Thank you for letting me be part of Women's History Month and the Women's History in the Making. Hopefully,
Yes.
Oh yeah.
maybe someday there's going to be a meta podcast about you guys.
Yeah. But all right. So that wraps it up.
And we're good.
Yeah. Thank you for watching InfoDump. I'll put that in right at the end there because I don't think we actually said that.